the bigger news, I think, was with the DC case, the January
with the
6th
judge
case.
who actually did the right thing?
Well, so in that case, she took the opposite view and said, we're not going to take into account any politics whatsoever. Like she said, we had this
She
bingo.
actually said that.
We had this bingo thing going on, me and Eric Tuck from the AP. I was sitting at the same table as him, and I was like, what's the bingo probability that she says, Mr. Lauro, the election calendar doesn't matter for me? And I obviously won because she did say that.
So was the bingo card with certain words like election?
No, I just said to him before, like, if I was just be like, I'm going to call it out.
Because my bingo card for Judge Chutkan with Donald Trump would have been like, all the squares would have just had no. Denied or no. And then that's how I would have won Trump bingo with Chutkan, because she would have been like, denied, no.
Well, the other thing with her is the eye roll. She does these, like, she sits back and sighs.
I didn't have the benefit of this, so you need to share this, because people need to know, like, what that's all about.
So as it goes, when John Lauro steps up and goes, like, but Your Honor, Mr. Trump is going to be prejudiced, she sits back and she does this thing where she's like...
So were you the one who was telling me, like, the tea on this is that she actually does like Mr. Lauro, John Lauro, the lawyer for Trump, let's be clear, and that she's kind of doing this dance with him in court because she knows that he has to kowtow to a crappy client like Donald Trump?
So in the very first hearing, or maybe the second hearing that we had in this case, this was back in October, November last year, and Judge Chutkan would look at him and say, Mr. Lauro, I understand you have to say these things, and you got your whole spiel that you got to deliver. And Mr. Lauro was like nodding, and I was like, yes, I have to deliver this. And Todd Blanche, was sitting there like. But that did happen, and B, at the start of the joint status conference, they had a little, back and forth. It was kind of like little jokey, where. Judge Chutkan's like, oh, Miss Laura, it's good to see you again.
It's been some
time. And Laura says something to the effect of, have I gotten through this time? It's been such a relaxing period. And then she goes like, well, enjoy it while it lasts. So.
Okay, but hold on for a second, though. So consider what we just talked about with Juan Merchan, right? And then we're now having this conversation about Tanya Chutkan. And they're different courts. One is a New York State court, which is Merchan. One is a federal district court, which is Chutkan. They're procedurally in different postures, though, Hugo. Merchan's case went to trial, jury verdict rendered, right? Chutkan's just kind of getting back into the swing of things, which is why, again, I feel like Merchan kind of lost the plot there a little bit, because he's already crossed the finish line.
He thinks he's done with this case. He doesn't really care.
Other than the sentencing. And right. I just think that we need to kind of stop and pause and kind of give Chutkan her flowers, because she could have easily been like, yeah, we can take some time on this and consider it. No, she put the pedal to the metal on this, not only getting it back on calendar, which we saw for the status conference, but she entered an order, as she promised at the end of that day on Thursday, that basically told Donald Trump, y'all need to his lawyers, you guys actually have to earn your fee, and you guys actually have to do the work.
Yeah, and they weren't too happy about that. I mean, we saw the scheduling conference, the scheduling proposal from the Trump side. It was they wanted to do all this litigation about their motion to dismiss first, and then they wanted
an insult.
Well, and I reported at the time that it was like they inserted 2 months worth of delay, like on this made up. It's not made up, but there was no reason to put their litigations of the motions about whether Jack Smith was illegally appointed or not in the place that they did. They did it right before they got to the immunity. And if you look at the scheduling proposal they suggested, it ate up 2 months, which put them past the election.
So here's my question for you, because you're the Trump campaign and Trump legal whisperer, in my opinion, Hugo. Are they just too obvious, they being Trump lawyers? So when they file that type of ridiculousness in the joint status report where they say, we want to deal with appointments first and then immunity later, don't you think that's an insult to somebody like Judge Chutkan, who's just too smart? It's just too cute by half when I see them do those filings.
I think it was very cute. At this point, I also think they don't care either. I think they've reached the point where they're like, well, we're not going to get the trial before the election. That was our main focus, so we're just gonna fuck about, and we're gonna do whatever we need to do here, and we'll kick it down the road a little bit. I think there's also a certain. They were riding high after the documents case got dismissed. They were riding high after the SCOTUS decision, and they know no matter what happens in the next few months and weeks, and the rest of the January 6th case, it's gonna be appealed, and they're gonna go through all of this again, and so. I think
you're giving them way too much credit, though, they being Trump legal. Both the classified documents dismissal of the indictment was done at the hands of Judge Cannon, and the win that they just got from SCOTUS was done by SCOTUS. This was not done by the Trump lawyers. There is no amount of
let me say
skilled
one thing.
lawyering that's going on right now that is like, oh, I'm outmaneuvering Jack Smith because they're bad lawyers. That's not what's happening. So if we're being very honest about the wins, quote unquote, that Trump has acquired over the last, I don't know, 3 months, those have been done because of other people, other parties, other hands. It hasn't been because of Trump legal.
I think that's fair. I mean, I will say, look, they did file the motions. They did think to do let's just, I mean, it was a Hail Mary, but let's do the presidential immunity, and let's do the presidential immunity appeal. They still have to file it, and I don't know that the previous set of lawyers would never necessarily have thought to do that. In fact, I think there was one of my colleagues spoke to another Trump lawyer, and they were like, "Yeah, that was a good decision." So, I mean, this is what happens when you scrape the bottom of the barrel, anyway. But at least they filed it. But I think I get your point, which is accurate about,
because when they actually go to court and they actually do things like a trial, either civil or criminal, how does it end up for Donald Trump?
Yeah, it was bad.
E. Jean Carroll lost twice.
Right.
New York AG's office, Letitia James, they lost, right?
Right.
And then when he went to trial in front of the Manhattan DA's office case, right? Lost. I mean,
They're a bad
batting
trial
1,000.
team.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I mean, people seem to underestimate the fact that there are like forces at play that are going on right now that have nothing to do with your litigation skills as a lawyer, which is why you can put somebody like Alina Habba up and say, hey, go and do something.
But they are still
miserably.
taking credit, right? That is one. They're still going to take credit no matter what. And so
With
I
Donald
think,
Trump standing there saying how he thinks his legal team's so
well,
crappy.
we will get to that. We will get we'll get to him shitting on his legal team. But it is also, I think, true that they look at the landscape and they think, oh, we were responsible for this. Whether or not that is true or not, they are taking credit for it internally, and I think that is also informing their worldview when they're finding, like, let's just throw this against the wall. Let's see what else sticks, because we've been so successful with this so far.
Well, I mean, as a lawyer, you don't do that, right? Like, as a lawyer, you're not
These guys
supposed to
do.
do that. Well, they do it, and so here's my question for you then. How much money do you think these people have made doing this?
Well, you can see the FEC reports. Todd Blanche has made a lot of money. Him and Emil Bove, their new Blanche law firm, has made a lot of money. I think they probably exceeded $1 million. I know Evan Corcoran in the documents case exceeded $1 million, and he really wasn't doing very much at all. Other
than writing his memoir on attorney-client privileged or
So-
non-attorney-client
right,
privileged
exactly.
notes,
That
that's
was
exactly
what
what
he
he's
did.
doing.
Okay, but Evan Corcoran, I think Evan Corcoran made a lot of money. He made about $1 million, maybe $1 million plus, and he didn't do very much. There are some lawyers who've made a lot less money, I have to say. The disparity in the payments have been quite extraordinary.
And who's been gatekeeping those payments? Like, is Boris the one who's sitting there, like, looking at the invoices saying, oh, yeah, you get paid?
I don't know the answer
Or is it
to
like
that.
Oprah style? Like, you get $1 million, and you get $1 million, and
Well,
you get
Chris
$1 million.
Kai's got his
Three.
$3 million retainer up front.
And nobody has ever seen or heard from Chris Kai's ever again.
Well, what happened was he got demoted to the civil litigation team during the documents case. He got pushed out by Jim Trusty and Tim Palatori, and then basically Chris Kai's went away.
Hugo Lowell's palace intrigue.
It's 100% accurate. And then he's made a reappearance in some of these cases. And what I was told was they couldn't get rid of him because Trump was like, I've already paid this guy. We need to extract as much money out of him as possible. And so Boris and Trump decided to keep him on, and he's just kind of like a slave to them now, where they just make him do stuff that they don't want to do, or the other lawyers don't want to do. And they're like, well, you got your $3 million, so you can't complain now.
Well, I will tell you this. I do think November is a very momentous kind of decision inflection point for America in many different ways. But I think if you're Trump legal, you're watching that very carefully. Because if Trump loses in November, those legal cases are going to go full freight. And the question ends up being, do you then revamp your legal team? And do you punt all of these people somewhere else because you really do have to worry about incarceration if you're Donald Trump? Or do you say, I'm going to keep this JV squad of lawyers that I have because, to your point, I've paid them all this money and I'm kind of stuck like Chuck with really, with what I have. I mean, that is why, and you've said this before, Hugo, Trump's running to stay out of prison. He's not running, for office to be able to provide for Americans. He's running for office so that he doesn't have to be prosecuted anymore.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question about the legal team. I don't know. Well, Tom Blanche, the lead lawyer, has himself a decision to make, right? Because if Trump wins, my sources tell me that he could get any job legal-wise that he wanted. If he wanted to
Are you talking like AG?
well, I don't know if he wants that. I think what he is gunning for is White House counsel. So Todd Blanche could be White House counsel in a second Trump admin. And that's the best case scenario, right? But if Trump loses, what is Todd going to do? Right, so does he...
Where's the money go? Where's the money come from?
Well,
when
there's still
Trump
several
loses
millions in
November?
Save America PAC.
For that?
Well, I mean, he keeps depending on how much
You think that man's going to lose in November and then spend his money on legal fees?
Well, he might have to. I mean, if I was Trump, that's the hedge I would make, right? Is I might lose the election, and then I might have to,
But still have a war chest to be
and
able
then
to
I have
fight
all
the
these legal
stuff.
cases coming down the pike. I'm going to squirrel away maybe like 10, 15 million to pay for my legal fees going forward.
Are you going to start hawking your gold sneakers more?
Well, if I add $1 million at a pop, then maybe. But Trump's got a decision to make, but the lawyers do as well. Like, do you want to stick around? Like, do you want to lose more cases and ruin your
I'm going to
reputation?
dispatch you to go find out what's going to happen on this, because I sincerely believe there's going to be a massive regime change when Trump loses in November when it comes to his legal team, because I think because he knows what his exposure is, I think he knows that he's going to have top level talent to be able to get through what's about to come to him.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that he will have a sentencing at the end of November.
That's going to be painful for him. I think it's like I don't think he's prepared for, if he loses, I don't think he's prepared mentally or at all for what's coming down the pike. I think he's going to
You mean like in terms of going to jail?
Yeah. I mean, it won't be immediate, right? He will still appeal and all this, but I don't know that Trump has figured out in his own head what is, the world of hurt that could be awaiting him if he loses.